Welcome to UPLEVEL, Real Health, Real Talk with Dr. Jenna Blasi. I'm Dr. Jenna. I spent years crafting ways to help women thrive, and I want to help you do the same. On this podcast, we dive deep into health at every level, focusing on the mind, the body, and the spirit. This is where real conversations meet transformational wellness. We'll be talking about all the things that truly matter, from nutrition and fitness to lifestyle, mindset, and personal development. Plus, the real deal on managing stress and navigating menopause. So if you're ready to elevate your health journey with authentic, transformative insights, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to UPLEVEL. I am Dr. Jenna, and today we are diving into the gut hormone connection, because your gut and your hormones are having a conversation. And if you're only listening to one, you are absolutely missing part of the story. I see so many women, they come in and they're frustrated. Suddenly they've gained all this weight since menopause and they're bloated and they've got brain fog, weight gain around the middle, mood swings. And they've done hormone testing, they've tried supplements, they've even started hormone therapy. But the hormones aren't working or making them worse. They're not tolerating them. And no one's asked, how often are you having a bowel movement? What's going on with your gut? And so this is often like a revelation to women. So today I want to, I don't want to say convince you, but sort of convince you that your gut and your hormones are having potentially the same conversation. Like they're having a conversation. And if you're only listening to one, you are missing part of the story, and you're missing, in my opinion, a foundational piece that everything stems from. And so many women, through no fault of their own, they've only been given half the picture and they're only addressing half the picture. And then they feel stuck. They've tried the hormone therapy and they can't tolerate it, or didn't make a difference. And now what do? Because they still have all their symptoms. So let's talk about how the gut and the hormones communicate. The gut functions like an endocrine organ, all right? The gut-hormone relationship is a two-way conversation. So your gut is functioning like an endocrine organ in many ways. So it's producing numerous signaling molecules and hormones that affect appetite, metabolism, digestion, and communication with the brain. And this is not alternative medicine. This is physiology. So there are some key pathways: the gut microbiome and cortisol, blood sugar regulation, thyroid, and then today, the big one, estrogen. And we're going to spend some real time here with the estrogen piece today. But let's look briefly at the gut microbiome and cortisol, because that's another hormone, right? Chronic stress dysregulates the microbiome, and a dysregulated microbiome amplifies the stress response. So it becomes this vicious cycle. Okay. And then blood sugar regulation, which is a big deal today. And I recently was exposed to statistics that say that the average, I've talked about diabetes and they've done some studies where, and I don't have them handy, I apologize, but where they looked at the amount of time and money it takes to prevent diabetes. So they added up, food prep and exercise and all of the things to do to kind of prevent diabetes. And then they added up all of the time and effort once you have diabetes, medications, doctor's appointments, et cetera, et cetera. And they found it cost twice as much money and took twice as much time to reverse diabetes as it did to prevent it in the first place. And then recently, and I haven't dove into this, all right, but I saw a talk that showed that the average person with diabetes in this country spends anywhere from $80,000 to $500,000 on their disease over the course of their lifetime, which is crazy. Now, again, I haven't dove into that, but we know that disease costs us a lot. We're always worried about what health costs. I hear people say, I can't afford to eat healthy. I can't afford to do this. I can't afford to do that. Being sick, how are we affording that? It costs a lot. We think our health insurance covers it, but it doesn't really. And then when we are losing work because we're not feeling well, we're losing money, we're retiring early because we're sick, we're losing time. And so there's like quality of life costs, and then there's actual financial costs. But that's not what this talk is about. But it got me thinking, because I'm talking about blood sugar regulation. I met with a woman earlier who, her doctor, so this woman's struggling with her weight. And it's primarily since menopause, and the weight is just coming on strong, and she's exercising. She's trying to do the right things. She's trying different things with her diet. Things that used to work don't work anymore. Sound familiar? And her diet, or her primary, said, I've been there. Same thing happened to me. And I just, basically I waited till I got diabetes, and then I went on a GLP-1. Why are we waiting until our car crashes to do the maintenance on the car? It makes no sense to me. And as I've told you from previous episodes, the GLP-1s are only going to be so effective if we don't also address these other pieces. So blood sugar regulation. Your gut produces hormones like GLP-1, like GIP, that regulate your blood sugar, among many others. And the health of the microbiome also appears to affect and influence insulin sensitivity. So the gut microbiome affects blood sugar regulation. There's a relationship with cortisol, also with thyroid. Emerging research suggests that gut health may influence thyroid function through nutrient absorption, immune regulation, and inflammation. Now, it's still actively being studied, but it's worth knowing about. And then there's the big one for many of you, estrogen piece. All right. Now, before we get to estrogen, I want you to picture your liver, also important, especially when in our 40s and 50s we start developing fatty liver, and a high percentage of people develop fatty liver. A certain percentage of those develop into cirrhosis, a certain percentage of those develop into cancer. So this is not a mundane thing that, I don't have to worry about my fatty liver. No, these things matter. So I want you to picture your liver and your gut as teammates. Your liver is packaging the estrogen for elimination, but your gut decides what happens next. All right, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. So diving into the estrobolome, the missing piece potentially of your hormone picture. So the estrobolome is a specific collection of gut bacteria that manages your estrogen. And most women have never even been told that this exists. So the main difference with the microbiome is the entire community of microbes living in your body, while the estrobolome is a small specific part of that community that handles estrogen. All right, so estrobolome, that collection of gut bacteria, it produces an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. And this enzyme is responsible for metabolizing your estrogen as it passes through the gut. So let me kind of explain how this works in simple terms, because this is not an hour-long podcast. Your liver processes your estrogen and packages it for elimination, sends it off to the gut. So if the estrobolome is healthy and balanced, estrogen gets eliminated properly. Beta-glucuronidase isn't the enemy here. We actually need it. The goal is not zero activity. Same with any of these things. Insulin, the goal is not zero activity. Right here, we've got a problem. Cortisol, zero? No, we don't want it at zero. It's about having the right amount. So when the estrobolome is disrupted, dysbiosis, low fiber, chronic stress, antibiotics, that enzyme becomes overactive. And overactive beta-glucuronidase reactivates the estrogen that was supposed to be eliminated, right? It's inactivated, it's supposed to be eliminated, and then the beta-glucuronidase, when it's overly active, reactivates it, which recirculates it back into the bloodstream. So you end up with estrogen that should have left your body coming back in. And this can influence symptoms like weight gain around the midsection, breast tenderness, mood swings, heavy or irregular cycles in perimenopause, oftentimes which results in a hysterectomy for women. And even when your ovaries get left in, these women, there's an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, there's an increased risk of depression and anxiety, and women go into perimenopause, or menopause, I should say, earlier, typically when they've had a hysterectomy. And so all of these things are influenced by this extra buildup of estrogen. And so along with many other factors, because we know the body's complex, but the gut piece is the part of this picture that almost nobody is talking about. Or that's all they're talking about. There are extremes, I understand that. But like when we're looking at conventional medicine or all of the focus on hormones, that's not the whole conversation. And the gut is a big part of the picture that's not being addressed. And here's the thing, the lab doesn't tell you what the gut is doing with that estrogen. Now, on the flip side, it's not just about too much recirculation. A less diverse microbiome can also alter estrogen metabolism in ways that affect your hormone levels. Now, this relationship is still being explored, but the point is that balance matters always. And the gut is one of the primary places that balance in general is regulated. So, what disrupts the estrobolome? Antibiotic use. Even one course can significantly shift gut bacteria. Also, low fiber diet. The estrobolome thrives on fiber, as does the microbiome in general. Chronic stress. Cortisol directly impacts microbiome diversity. Constipation. We have come to accept so much constipation as normal. If your elimination is sluggish, estrogen sits in the gut longer and gets reabsorbed. So this is why bowel movements matter for hormone health. And, I work with so many people, they're not going regularly at all. All right, but that's another topic. Alcohol influences gut bacteria and estrogen metabolism. And so many of you have experienced, those of you that drink, that you cannot tolerate alcohol in the same way now that you're perimenopausal or menopausal. Because it's affecting your estrogen metabolism and your gut bacteria, which is already being affected by all of these other changes. Now, some research suggests that hormonal contraceptives may also influence the composition of the gut microbiome, but we're still learning exactly what these changes mean clinically. I mean, the gut is such a vast topic and it's an evolving area of research. But this is part of the reason why two women can have the same estrogen level on a lab test and have completely different experiences. The lab doesn't show you what the gut is doing with that estrogen, and the gut is doing a lot. We all also have different responses to varying levels of estrogen that varies from person to person. So let's talk about what you can do about it, right? I like to look at the issue, but there's always a solution. In life, I want you, no matter how trapped you feel in any area of your life, I'm getting off topic, there's always a solution, all right? Even if it doesn't feel like it. All right, so what can you do about it? Supporting the estrobolome is gut health work, which is exactly what we're already doing this whole month. So the good news is it's the same work. All right, this isn't about overcomplicating things. It is the same work. I just want you to understand the different aspects that you are influencing when you do this work. Fiber feeds the estrobolome. It supports healthy beta-glucuronidase activity, and it supports the elimination of estrogen. Fiber supports the whole microbiome. So it's not just about bowel movements. It is literally food for your gut bacteria. 2, and these are not in necessary, specific order, regular bowel movements. Estrogen needs to leave the body, among other things. Constipation means reabsorption. All right, remember our Bristol stool chart? We can do a little check-in there with the Bristol stool chart. Ideally, we're going for every meal we have. So if you have 3 meals a day, ideally you're going to the bathroom 3 times a day. Diverse plant foods, 30 different varieties a week. Diversity of plants equals diversity of microbiome and a healthier estrobolome. Fermented foods, yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi. This supports healthy gut bacteria broadly. Cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, arugula, cabbage, bok choy, radishes, broccoli sprouts. Now don't panic if you don't like one or a few of these because there are so many options. These contain compounds like indole-3-carbinol, like you've heard of DIM. These compounds contain indole-3-carbinol that support healthy estrogen metabolism specifically. Now, I have had some people say, well, I can't eat those because I have thyroid issues. I have hypothyroid. I have Hashimoto's. I can't eat cruciferous. That is a misnomer, all right? These vegetables, when cooked, break down the compound that is detrimental to your thyroid. So the idea that you can't have broccoli or cauliflower, for example, with hypothyroid is more about the raw vegetable, which I'm sorry, but raw broccoli, raw cauliflower, it's very hard to digest. So that's the part that might not be healthy for your thyroid. And also, I don't remember anymore, but I've looked into the amount of kale, for example, that you would have to eat to actually inhibit your thyroid is a huge amount. So again, unless you're drinking huge amounts of raw kale juice every day, it's not typically an issue. And the benefits you're going to get from these vegetables cooked, vitamins, nutrients, fiber, etc., are huge. Reduce alcohol because it has a direct impact on estrogen metabolism. And manage stress. Cortisol disrupts the microbiome. And we keep coming back to this because it keeps being true. That's not going to go away, right? We call high blood pressure the silent killer. Stress is the silent killer. So before we head towards our close, I want you to notice something. Everything that supports the estrobolome is the same work that we talked about last week for overall gut health. This is not a separate protocol. It's the same foundation, which is why I always start here, because when the gut gets healthier, so much else follows. So in practice, when a woman comes to me with estrogen excess symptoms, we call that estrogen dominance. I don't love that term, but estrogen excess symptoms, and she's already optimized her diet, let's say, and her stress and her sleep. I'm looking at the gut. How is her elimination? How is her fiber intake? Has she had antibiotics recently? But I will say, a lot of the women I see, they've optimized their diet, they've optimized their exercise. Most of the women I see are still struggling with their sleep because it's really hard to still get sleep when we have these type of hormonal and gut imbalances, and also optimizing stress. That's lower, right? There are fewer women that I see that aren't stressed. In fact, I met with a woman recently and I asked her just over the last 5 to 10 years, what's her average stress level? And she thought it was okay, because she has a really positive attitude. But then she contacted me the next day and said, I want to update my answer. I've actually had an incredible amount of stress that wasn't really being recognized. And so we might handle stress well, but it's still stress. But many of us are just used to functioning with that. So anyway, when I ask those questions, how's elimination, how's the fiber intake, have you had antibiotics recently, etc., the answers are almost always quite revealing. The gut is not a side conversation for your hormone health. It is a huge piece of the conversation. And it is foundational, in my opinion, to get maximum benefits for hormones, and especially if you're adding hormone therapy, to have the gut really dialed in. Will hormones help the gut health? Yes, but it's a deeper picture that I find when we really get it locked in. Women who couldn't previously handle hormones or wouldn't have gotten the same benefits or would have maybe done well for a little bit and then hit a wall do so much better. All right. So in closing, I'm going to just close and then give you some action steps. Your body isn't randomly making your hormones misbehave. It's working within an incredibly interconnected system. And the healthier that system becomes, the more resilient your hormones become. Your body isn't working against you. I know a lot of you feel like your body's betraying you, or maybe it feels a little bit broken. Your body isn't working against you. It's communicating with you. And healing begins when we stop fighting symptoms and start listening to them. But like I said a couple weeks ago, we're taught to settle. We're taught to just accept that we shouldn't feel good, and this is what aging looks like. You're going to have belly fat and you're going to feel bloated, and this is just okay. And I believe every woman deserves to thrive and can thrive. And we've got to stop settling. So next week, we're going to tackle something that I'm excited to dig into, and that is the gut health misinformation that is flooding the internet right now. And we're going to look at what actually matters. and what you can just sort of stop worrying about or let go. And then I have a very special guest the week after, Dr. Kim Bretz. She's a naturopathic doctor and gut health expert who's going to bring this whole arc home. And I'm so excited to talk with her. So action steps. Add 1 cruciferous vegetable every day this week. Broccoli, arugula, cabbage, bok choy, radishes, broccoli sprouts, 1 every day. 2, check in on elimination. Are you going daily? How many times a day are you going? Are you going comfortably? Are you having full evacuation? And if not, more water, more fiber, more movement. Priority 1. And then the final action step, if you drink alcohol regularly, just notice this week. Not judging, just noticing, right? What's going on with your sleep? How you feeling? Awareness first, always, right? All right. Thank you so much for joining me. I always enjoy our time together. I love hearing from you all. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Feedback, questions, topics you love, what you'd love to talk about. hello@uplevelholistichealth.com. And work with, I know that we can't help everybody. Find the practitioners that are gonna, ask the right questions and ask. One of the things that we do in my practice is we ask the questions that nobody else is asking. And so if you're navigating hormone symptoms and no one has ever asked you about your gut, this is exactly the kind of work we do at UpLevel. So you can reach out anytime, but I'm also, because we can't help everybody, medically anyway, if you don't live in the states that we're licensed in, I want you to know what to look for in the people that you work with. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of UpLevel, Real Health, Real Talk. I hope today's conversation inspired you to take the next step in your health journey, one that nourishes not just your body, but your mind and spirit as well. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's episode, please leave a review. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep thriving. And remember, true wellness is a journey, and you are on the right path.